Hello and welcome to another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. I'm your host, Chad Marshik. My program today is called Shoulder Health and Performance, and we're going to go ahead and share with you a lot of the information that we've gathered over the years here at Body Symmetry and how we've helped a lot of people, one, prevent injury, and two, help them with better performance. I'd like to introduce to you Justin Knadler. Justin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Justin is a trainer here at Body Symmetry, also a former Major League Baseball player, played professionally for 10 years, and recently kind of hung it up more or less and decided to start a career here at Body Symmetry. Justin, you've had to rely on your shoulders as a catcher. I know you were drafted as a pitcher many moons ago to make a living. Can you share with me and the audience a little bit, kind of enlighten us, some of the things that you did over your career to help you perform better and prevent injury?
Well, first and foremost, to be a professional athlete, especially a professional baseball player and as a throwing athlete, we heavily rely on our shoulder health. You know, if you can't play, you know, if your shoulders hurt, you're not going to be able to perform and make a living. So, you know, by coming to you here at Body Symmetry in the past 10 years and some things that I was able to do on my own, it's kept my shoulder very healthy. I've done a lot of preventative exercises, a lot of corrective exercises, and a lot of strengthening exercises that have allowed me to stay healthy throughout my whole career. I've never had any kind of shoulder problems, and it's really helped me maintain good shoulder health. And it's not just for athletes too. We find a lot of clients here at Body Symmetry, a lot of people that I interact with, they have poor shoulder health. Mm-hmm. And I think these exercises that we're going to share with the audience today is going to be beneficial for any throwing athlete, not just baseball players, but volleyball players. They have some of the same movements. Football players, quarterbacks, people that need to do any kind of throwing movement, which is an unnatural movement for the human body. It's going to be beneficial for not just those athletes, but for just everyday people as well.
Right. One of the things that people need to understand is that typically shoulder issues come about usually with overuse injuries, or the cumulative effect, the repetitive nature of one particular action, say throwing a baseball, or even in an occupational setting, reaching in the same pattern to do something time and time and time again. If you think about how many times you've thrown a baseball over your lifetime, I mean, we're talking about, it could be approaching 1 million plus movements. Would you say that's probably a fair statement?
I've been playing ball since I was 5 years old. I still, to this day, can go out and throw batting practice for an hour where I'm probably throwing a countless amount of baseballs in an hour's time. And my shoulder's still healthy enough to go back and do it the very next day, and it's because of these corrective and preventive exercises that allows me to do that.
That's exactly right, and that's what people, I think, really fail to understand, is that you've got to do a lot of these preventative exercises to ensure that you can still do what you've always done, whether it be something in the workplace or with a particular sport or activity that you enjoy as a hobby.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go ahead and share some of these exercises today, and we want to talk about two specific things: corrective exercises that will help strengthen muscles that happen to be weak, and corrective exercises that focus on flexibility or range of motion. Because with any type of activity, you're either going to, certain muscles are going to become stronger because of that activity, and also at the same time become weaker. Typically, you're going to see changes in range of motion if you don't do some of these corrective exercises, which is going to affect movement and typically, sooner or later, not if, but when, cause injury.
And your performance as well. I mean, it's going to affect a lot of different things.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about the corrective, one of the corrective stretches that we really like to use for testing. And this is a line test that we use just to check range of motion and what I call the lateral, not just me, but people in therapy specifically call the medial, it's a medial rotation test. And this is to really assess the length of the lateral shoulder rotators, or primarily two muscles in the rotator cuff musculature, both the infraspinatus and the teres minor. And so what Justin's doing, Justin's a right-handed athlete. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix his scapula, which is a bone in his back, right back here on the ground. So what I'm going to do to fix that, I'm going to press on his shoulder, fix it here, and I'm going to allow Justin just to drop, let gravity and his own ability, drop his hand down towards the ground. Now, if you look here on his right side, normal range of motion is probably going to be in this department, or in this area right here. If you look on his left side, if I were to press here, and I don't know if you can get a very good shot here with the camera, but if I'm going to press on his left side, now let's do his right side, you can see there's a difference of anywhere between 15 and 20 degrees. So even though he's tighter on his right side, his right shoulder is definitely healthy, but some people don't even have that amount of range of motion. They may be right here. That's how tight they are. So there are corrective exercises that's going to promote better flexibility in his lateral shoulder rotators, which is going to help ensure that he's got good range of motion in his shoulder if he's going to go out and throw a baseball or do other activities. So there's a great stretch that we like to do to help lengthen the rotator cuff musculature on typically the dominant side that does most of the work. If you're a throwing athlete or if you're an occupational athlete that has a particular task that requires you to do a repetitive job time and time again, where maybe your shoulder is doing hundreds and hundreds of times the same movement pattern through the day, where you're going to have problems in terms of flexibility sooner or later. So what Justin's going to do, he's going to lie on his side to help correct and or stretch those lateral shoulder rotators. And he's going to make sure that his scapula is going to contact the ground, all right? So ideally, you want to lie right on your side, and you're going to drop your chin into your armpit here, and you're going to take your other hand and place it on your wrist, and lightly, anywhere between, apply 3 and 5 pounds of pressure to your wrist so that your forearm goes down towards the ground. All right? You want to hold this for anywhere between 3 and 5 seconds, and we like to do a series of maybe 8 to 10 repetitions. Now, really to create change and or to increase flexibility more rapidly, frequency is key. So up to maybe 2-3 times a day of 8 to 10 reps, holding each one for, again, 3 to 5 seconds, applying 3 to 5 pounds of pressure would be appropriate to help facilitate, really speed up that flexibility process. So somebody who's going to throw, let's say, batting practice, a couple hundred pitches, or again, in your job, if you're about ready to do something that's going to require hundreds of movements in the same position, then you're going to want to do this frequently that particular day, 3 to 5 times. Okay? All right?
Yep.
Good. So that's the sideline internal rotation. The other test that we usually like to do, go ahead and stand up, and or corrective stretch, is against the wall for the pecs. If you've ever noticed a weightlifter or somebody that does a lot of bench press movements or does a lot of push-up movements, you'll see that they've got their arms kind of flared out and their shoulders, from a postural standpoint, may be really turned in. Well, that's a good sign, posturally speaking, that their pec minor here is tight. So if Justin were to lean against the wall here, like he's doing, to test here, you're going to flatten your back, and you really want to kind of get an idea where the back of the shoulder is in relationship to the wall. Justin's pretty symmetrical here. His left shoulder is not any farther forward than his right shoulder as far as distance from the wall, okay? So he's fine, but let's assume that one side, typically the dominant side, is much tighter than the non-dominant side. We'd want to really focus on stretching that side. So a good way to stretch that is to have a partner here place the palm of their hand right here in the front of the shoulder, right kind of where the pec meets the shoulder on both sides. And I like to do a cross arm position stretch. It's just because I'm going to drive the forces here. I'm going to go kind of at an angle, which is more beneficial to stretching the pec minor. So I'm just going to apply anywhere between 15, 20 pounds of pressure, and just push his shoulders back to really stretch that pec minor. What do you feel here when I'm doing this?
I feel the stretch in the pec and in the top of the shoulder.
Okay. So I may oscillate a little bit here and apply pressure. And I may do that for 15 to 20 seconds and do a series of maybe 3 to 5 stretches like that. But it's a great way to really stretch that pec minor out. So if you're a person that does a lot of pressing type movements on your back or on your stomach, if you're doing push-ups, again, a lot of times the pec muscles, the pec minor specifically, can become really tight, and that's a good way to help stretch that, all right? what's important about doing that, if you want to do some of those other bench press movements or push-up movement patterns, in time, you're going to have such bad posture that's going to really cause some impingement issues in the shoulder joint. So this is a great way to help prevent that problem. Another good stretch that we like to do for throwing athletes, not only just throwing athletes, the people that have shoulder issues, they may have like a tight posterior shoulder capsule, is another partner movement. Go ahead and lie on your back. With a partner, your partner is going to, again, kind of apply the same type of pressure like we did here against the wall for the pec minor. But the person that is being stretched is going to place their hands underneath their back or their glutes, all right? You see Justin has his hand just under the top of each buttock. The partner is going to kneel to the side here, take each hand, and again, I like a cross pattern like so. You don't have to. You can do one side at a time. If I really want to focus on one side, I can do that by pressing, like his right side is definitely tighter than his left. And again, I'm going to take the palm of my hand, place it here right in front of the shoulder, in between the pec. And if your partner on the ground is experiencing any discomfort where you're pressing, just tweak your hand position slightly so that you're not pressing like sometimes you may kind of impinge the bicep tendon or press on that or other areas that might be sore in the shoulder. What do you feel now?
A very, very tough stretch.
Okay. Now I know yesterday you threw batting practice.
For an hour. Yeah.
For an hour, so he threw quite a bit. And this is good for you today, I think.
It is very good. And you could also talk about when you lay on the floor like this, you can actually see how the shoulders roll forward and being in a position like this. Sometimes it's hard to tell when a guy's standing up.
Why don't you turn around? Let's see if we can get a shot of this with your feet out like so. So let's see if we can get a shot of this. If you notice with Justin's hand is underneath his hips, what I'm looking for here is what you're testing. If you look underneath his right shoulder versus his left shoulder, you can see how much farther his right shoulder is off the ground than his left shoulder. The distance between the back of his shoulder to the ground is almost about my hand width. And if you go over to his left side, it's about 4 fingers. Okay, so it's roughly an inch higher, maybe even a little bit more on his right side. So you can tell that his right shoulder capsule is definitely tighter than his left. Now, part of that's from his occupation for 10 years throwing a baseball. But some of that's also just, it's still tight. So some people are far, far worse than you, obviously. Okay? But that's a really good effective stretch that you do with a partner. The next thing we're going to do is a sideline internal rotation. The one on this where you lie on your stomach. This is a good corrective strengthening and stretching exercises. So what Justin's going to do, he's going to take his forehead rested on his forearm. He's going to take his the other hand and place it behind his back. So this is his right hand. This is his tighter side. And we're going to show you the difference in range of motion between his right and left side as he lifts his hand towards the ceiling. So this is really going to work on stretching the shoulder capsule and also strengthening the muscles that help to retract his shoulder. It's also going to get a little bit of his lower trapezius too. So he's going to lift his hand up towards the ceiling, and if you notice here, he's able to get his hand off the ground or off of his backside, maybe 4 to 5 inches. So ideally, I would have somebody do anywhere between 15 and 20 reps, holding each one for about a 1 count at the top. All right, let's say you've done 5, 6, 7, 8 reps, and let's demonstrate the other side. Now, check out the side on his non-dominant side. You can see how easy it is for him from a range of motion standpoint for him to lift his left arm from his tailbone straight up versus his right side. Very different in terms of range of motion and just fluidity of movement. Okay, that's good. I think that's a good way to...
Yeah, those are tough.
Good.
But they're good.
Okay, the other thing that we want to do is we want to show you, just give you an idea of a way to stretch your lats. Most people have really tight lat muscles here. And the lat muscles really also affect the range of motion in the shoulder joint as well, or can, not all the time. But one of the stretches that we like to do, corrective stretches here, is where you would position yourself against the wall. Your feet are going to be about 5-6 inches away from the wall. Now some people, they're not going to be able to position themselves here without their heels rising off the ground. So really make sure you jam your heels into the ground. And what Justin's doing, he's going to reach over his head, keeping his elbows kind of in line with his shoulders, no wider than his shoulders, so his elbows are going to be in slightly. Keeping his back flat, and he's just going to press, try to get his hands to the wall. This is another great exercise, this lat stretch, for people that have issues with their lower back. This is a wonderful way to help not only with the lower back, but obviously with the shoulders, since the program today is shoulder health and performance. So you want to press your hands into the wall, hold that anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds, and you're going to do anywhere between 5 and 10 repetitions. So after he holds it for 5 or 10 seconds, he's just going to slowly take his hands away from the wall and then immediately go back, jam his hands into the wall, and really press, keep making sure to keep your head in a nice neutral position as well. You can see Justin's head is glued against the wall. His entire spinal column is glued against the wall. His hips are glued against the wall, and his heels are pressed into the floor. It's a good stretch for you.
Oh, yeah.
What do you feel when you do that?
Well, I feel it just burn all the way from my neck down to my mid-back, actually. So
okay.
It's a good, very good stretch.
Good stretch. Good. So those are some of the corrective flexibility exercises and tests that we do. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the corrective strengthening exercises. A lot of people in the gym, they'll do exercises that work on the deltoid muscles, say lateral raises or front raises or reverse flies, that work on the muscles that you see, or they'll do overhead pressing movements to try to add muscle mass to their deltoid musculature or their upper back. Those are all fine and dandy. These exercises that we're going to share with you, though, are really more about working the stabilizers and the neutralizers, the smaller, finer muscles that help preserve shoulder integrity. And these exercises are equally as important if you want to make sure that you can do some of those other things that you love doing in the gym, as well as playing particular sports. So one of the things that we find with a lot of people that we work with, and a lot of baseball players I've worked with over the years especially, is that everybody seems to be weak in the lower trapezius. All right, and the lower trapezius is the muscle here in your lower back, all right, and your middle traps that really help with what's called scapulothoracic rhythm, or how your scapula works with your glenohumeral joint. This bone here is your humerus that fits in the glenoid, which kind of encapsulates the head of your humerus. So to strengthen the muscles in your lower traps, which again are typically very underdeveloped, very weak oftentimes, you need to lie face down in a prone position, all right? You're going to rest your forehead on either a rolled up towel. We're using a half foam roller here, so you want to make sure that your head's in a nice neutral position. You're going to hold either light dumbbells or no weight. I can't express to you how important it is to not necessarily strain too much here. We're really trying to isolate these lower trapezius muscles, so you don't need heavy weight. So from this position, you're going to lift your hands off the floor, so your elbows are straight, hands in alignment with the outer aspect of your shoulder, and you're going to lift either your hands, again, no weight, and or light dumbbells. Justin's using 3 pounds here. And you're going to hold that anywhere between 3 and 5 seconds. It's really a good postural exercise. But again, also, obviously, it's going to help with how the shoulder joint operates. So you're going to lift up, hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. Now, we may do a series of this particular exercise of anywhere between 10 and 15 reps. And after we do 10 and 15 reps, we like to move the arms into what's called a T position. So now we're going to align the hands and elbows with the shoulder. So you've got a straight line here across the back, and then you're going to lift again. Same thing, you're going to hold that for 3 to 5 seconds, making sure to keep your head in a nice neutral position. He doesn't have his neck cocked forward or backwards. And again, this is the second phase that we like to do. Again, we call these scapular movements to help work on the lower and the middle trapezius. Okay, that's good, Justin. So anywhere between 10 and 15 reps for each position. All right, arms overhead and then arms in a T position. You want to hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. And typically, one set will suffice, but if somebody's especially weak, we may have them do 2 or 3 sets a day of that particular movement. All right, now we're going to go ahead and talk about the other exercise to work the rotator cuff musculature and the lower middle traps, the Y's, T's, M's, and W's. So we have a series of 4 movements to help work the rotator cuff musculature, all right, which very important. You hear the rotator cuff being injured oftentimes, and usually it's because of a postural issue or, again, a cumulative effect. It's usually not just one traumatic experience. It's typically over time of doing the same repetitive exercise with your shoulder not being where it needs to be in terms of flexibility and certain muscles being weak or certain muscles being too strong. You've got fraying typically of one of the rotator cuff tendons, and then wham, you tear something. Okay, so this exercise, the Y's, T's, M's, and W's, you can use, again, either no weight or very lightweight, typically no more than 5 pounds. Justin, again, is using 3 pounds. And the first movement here, he's doing a Y pattern movement. Okay, let's go ahead and turn to the side so people get an idea of what he's doing. So hips back. You've got a nice spine angle here. So keep your weight on your heels. And you're going to lift your arms with your thumbs pointed up towards the ceiling. Your head in a nice neutral position in this Y pattern. You're going to hold it for a 1 count at the top. Typically, I like to have an athlete do, or an individual for that matter, not a non-athlete, do anywhere between 10 and 15 reps. Okay, after you do 10 and 15 reps, you're going to go right into the T pattern. So the T pattern's next. Same setup position with your body. And you're going to lift laterally, again, thumbs pointed up towards the ceiling. Keeping your hands, elbows, and shoulders aligned with each other. And then after you do a series of 10 to 15 reps there, you're going to go right into the M pattern. And this is the M pattern with your knuckles facing the ceiling. You're going to retract your shoulders at the top. Just bring your hands straight up so your hands or the weights will almost graze each hip as you lift. And now holding this position is harder than what Justin is making it look for the average Joe.
I'm sweating.
You're sweating, okay. But you want to make sure you keep this nice spine angle. And then the fourth and final movement is the W pattern. This is the hardest one for a lot of people. If you don't have good range of motion in your shoulder, this is typically where we're going to see it in terms of faulty movement patterns. So you may not be able to pull your elbows up towards the ceiling. But what he's doing, he's going to pull his elbows straight up, and then he's going to rotate his palms up. Thumbs will go up towards the ceiling. And he's going to hold that for a 1 count, again at the top. So Y's, T's, M's, and W's. Okay, that's good. How your shoulders feel, all right?
A little toasty.
A little bit toasty. And again, he's not lifting heavy weight, but he's working a lot of those neutralizers and stabilizing muscles that typically are underutilized in activity, and we need to focus on those. Typically, people need to focus on those movements a little bit more. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go, let's come over to the wall. We're going to do an exercise here called a mid-back wall slide, and this is going to work, again, the shoulder stabilizers and neutralizers, specifically in the mid-back, the scapulothoracic musculature. So you're going to slide your arms straight up and down after you assume this position against the wall. Again, heels 5 to 6 inches from the wall. Butt against the wall, entire spine against the wall, head in a nice neutral position. And you're going to drive your arms straight up towards the ceiling, trying to keep your forearms against the wall, your elbows against the wall, your knuckles against the wall the entire time. And he does a great job. He's got really good what's called scapulothoracic rhythm. So everything does what it's supposed to do. This is much, much harder for most people than what he's making it look. But a very good exercise. So if you can't get your arms all the way against the wall, don't worry about it. Do what you can in terms of keeping your arms back, your head straight, sliding up and down. All right? A series of anywhere between 10 and 15 reps with a 1 second hold at the top. 1 to 2 sets would be a good way to go about doing that exercise. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is our rotator cuff D1 and D2 patterns over here. So the D1 pattern and D2 patterns are basic shoulder exercises that help work all the important rotator cuff muscles. So the D2 pattern, what he's going to do, he's going to take, you want to tie a tubing off up high, and he's just going to bring it down. Actually, let's go, yeah, we can actually do it kneeling since you're tall and we don't have a place we can tie it off. And he's just going to bring the tubing down like so. You can also do a crossbody reach with his left arm. It's another diagonal pattern from, again, high, what we call high to low. And you can see he's just got a nice angled movement. All right, that's good. Go ahead and stand up. And the other pattern, diagonal pattern, would be from low to high. So grabbing it with his left hand, I'm going to just step on this, and he's going to bring his arm across the body, up in a diagonal, and hold that for 1 count. So again, for both of these exercises, either one, anywhere between 10 and 15 reps, you don't need a lot of resistance, but you do need exercise tubing. Shouldn't be entirely, too hard, but you should feel after the completed reps that, hey, I'm tired. Okay, that's it. A lot of people have issues related to their shoulders. If you do think that you have something wrong, I'd advise you to get in touch with a really good physical therapist that can do an actual assessment. There are a lot of different impingement syndromes out there. We didn't really talk about specific syndromes, but a good physical therapist can identify some of those issues and or recommend further action be taken if they think that something's wrong. Thanks again for joining us on another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. If you have questions about what we do here at Body Symmetry, make sure you check out our website at bodysymmetry.com or give us a call. Justin, I appreciate you helping me out today.
Thanks, Chad. Had fun.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Until next time, I'm your host, Chad Marshak. Hey, Quinn and Riley.